My name is Nicole Patterson, and this is my recommendation of the graphic novel Pride of Baghdad by Brian K. Vaughan um, for Dr. Collin's 4200 class. The story is based on true events in which, during the April 2003 bombing of Baghdad, four lions escaped from the local zoo and were later killed by U.S. soldiers. The story is important and I think should be included in the survey of graphic novels because it has extreme cultural relevance and uses really good allegory and also shows different viewpoints on the war in Iraq and gives insight into Arab culture. I think this book aligns with the goals of the course because it's written in a similar way as the memoirs we've studied so far, but it's a historical allegory. The historical context is especially relevant to students in this class because it is about the U.S. invasion of Iraq. The characters in this novel simultaneously show some of the many different viewpoints on the issue, and I believe everyone will be able to relate to at least one of the characters' opinions. The use of detail and colorful illustrations opens up the discussion to the meaning of high and low art. And this book can also be analyzed using McLeod's information about color and the use of color in graphic novels. All of the books that we've read so far, of all the texts we've read so far, only one has been in color. And so this, for example, this novel uses color to set the mood, and it can almost be divided into chapters or scenes based on the color palette used. And then finally, the concise nature of the novel gives a snapshot of this situation in a really beautiful way. And the concise nature also adds variety to the other texts in the class, which tend to be much longer and span over a long period of time, whereas this one is less than a day. The events all take place in a single day. And this can open up the discussion about the value of shorter comics, which historically comics have always been shorter little strips and smaller books. So I think the main discussion that would take place would be about characterization, and I just wanted to talk about some of the ways that I interpreted these characters to show the multitude of other topics that could branch out from them. So first we have Zil, who is the male lion, and Zil is the defeatist. In this panel, we can see how he does not believe he can save himself or his family, and he makes excuses instead of acting, and he relies on his wives to get things done. And with this character, you could talk about the role of men in Eastern and Western society, and how Zil complicates both stereotypes. He complicates the idea of what it means to be a man and what it means to be the head of a family and all that kind of thing. So next we have Safa, who is Zil's older mate. She was not born in captivity, and so she knows what it's like to be free, or what freedom is like. But in this panel, we see her remembering the rape she endured in the wild, and she thinks being cared for by the humans is better than being free. So this could open up a discussion about colonialism, in which you would ask questions such as, is it better for some countries to be run by other countries? Is it easier to invade and run a country rather than letting them work out their own problems? And were some of the Iraqis grateful for the United States' involvement in overthrowing Saddam? These questions kind of make you cringe because it questions the validity of the idea of freedom, but I think it'd be a really interesting discussion. Next we have Noor, and Noor is Zil's younger mate, and she's a lot more lighthearted and optimistic than Safa, and this is interesting because Noor actually means light in Arabic. She believes freedom is possible and that she has the means to achieve it. In this panel, she is talking to her family and to her husband about what freedom is, and she really believes that you have to get freedom and earn freedom yourself. In a previous panel, Noor is seen plotting with a gazelle about working with the other animals to escape. And so with Noor, you could discuss the complications of the younger generation of Iraq. Much of the younger generation has access to the internet, and so they have some idea of what they think the outside world is like, and they believe that they can make their country a better place. but this motivation is more complicated than simply changing who's in power or starting a revolution. Just like Noor doesn't have a plan for when she escapes, she only knows that she doesn't want to stay where she is. So both of the wives could also be used in a feminist critique. The idea of having two wives is an interesting topic, as well as the idea of sexuality in Arab culture. Um, there, you could compare the brutal rape scene that Safa remembers to the healthier sexual relationship that Zil has with Noor, that he doesn't have with Safa. So I think this fits in really well with a lot of the other novels that we have seen in the class, such as Mouse, Persepolis, and Palestine. Specifically, the historical background of this novel is especially related to Persepolis because of the Iran-Iraq war that's discussed in Persepolis, in which the Iraqis are the enemy and they are invading. And this is 20 years later, and we are now invading Iraq. So the historical context shows the country's long-term struggle and the complex damage of Iraq. And finally, I just wanted to talk about the author and how he typically does not write single novels like this. And he wrote this specifically so that you could sit down and read it in one setting. He said that he did this to get out of his typical subject matter. And this quote says, "I wrote this story not because I have all the answers, but because I wanted to ask myself hard questions about the war in the Iraq War, the nature of occupation, and the price of freedom." So I think it's really cool that you can see how graphic novels can be used not only for entertainment, but to spread ideas and to get people talking and to get people asking questions. And I think that's a really vital role that they play in society. And I think that's becoming more and more prevalent. And that's why I think this would be a great addition to your course.